Welcome to Association Transformation. I don't know if I have a drum roll sound effect. Andrew, do we have sound effects? We need those. But
I don't know if you can hear that. Actually, I'm just doing it. My drum kit is downstairs, so I was just using the desk. Sorry. Do you want to do that again?
Before, all right, that sidebar that, because I need to know about you playing the drums. That's a whole new level of information about you that I didn't yet have. But back to the drum roll. Urgent news. Announcement. This is our 50th episode. 50. We made it, baby.
Yay!
50.
Well done, us. Well done, us. Oh my gosh. I didn't have gray hair when we started this.
Oh, stop it. I already did. So, but no, I mean, congratulations to you. Congratulations to us. I'm excited that Association Transformation has evolved, has continued, has earned the support and attention of so many around the world. So thanks for sticking with me on this.
No, you're very welcome. I'm enjoying it. Every other episode, I'm enjoying it.
You're such a jerk.
Did you see that lovely comment on LinkedIn the other day?
I did. Someone outside of Belgium likes us.
Yeah, and they said, you have such a lovely rapport. And I thought, clearly they're listening to a different podcast. But yeah, I thought it was very kind of them.
It's the New Year's resolution that you forced on me, where I'm not supposed to be mean to you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we'll keep that going, especially since we have a very important guest that I'd like to impress. So, let's be on our best behaviors here. But in honor of the 50th
You've
anniversary.
Already blown it. I'm already full of jokes.
Oh, damn it. Oh, no. All right. Well, then let's just be ourselves. What the hell? David, thank you so much for being with us on this very special episode. David Hutchens, the storytelling leader. I'm so excited to have you with us. Welcome to Association Transformation. This is Andrew. Andrew David, he is a world-renowned storytelling master. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he goes around the world, works with corporations, associations, everyone about harnessing the power of their narratives to advance mission. And I don't know what could be more relevant to mission-driven organizations and nonprofits than leveraging your story, leveraging your why.
And never more so than right now.
Especially now, right? Yeah, if your association leaders are not telling their stories, they are missing a huge and easy opportunity to create some engagement. So we'll explore that today.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. And David, when you and I met in Atlanta, I had no appreciation for how international you already were. So welcome to our international audience. We've had guests from everywhere and have audiences all over the world. So you're already traveling the world and engaging with organizations globally to really maximize this art.
And in fact, some people say, well, this storytelling idea, isn't that so American? Is that something that American leaders do? And it's not. This, a lot of my clients are in the United Kingdom and Germany and France, where, leaders might be a little bit more stoic. They don't reveal as much emotionally, perhaps, but they still need to tell stories that create context and engagement. And so that's a lot of my work is with those European leaders who are suspicious of this.
It's a very diplomatic way of describing them. I appreciate that. And, here I think of, maybe that overly emotional American organization that's jumping from video topic to TikTok, there are too many things on too many channels. And I wonder if harnessing one story is more powerful than trying to be everything to everybody on every new social media platform that exists. How do you help clients find the one story?
So Mindshare is a precious resource these days, right? There's so much noise and so many channels that's really hard to punch through and be heard. And so your question about the one story, I'm going to go the opposite direction with that. I don't think there is just one story. I think your organization is full of stories because your association is full of members who are bringing these incredible stories that you probably haven't heard yet. about values, what we believe, identity, who we are, what we care about, and what, we use this word storytelling. It sounds like it's a one-way transaction. I'm going to tell you stories, but the huge opportunity here is to invite stories from your members. What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? You'd be amazed some of the beautiful stories in your association that you haven't heard yet.
It sounds,
I love that.
Oh, sorry. When we're talking, now I'm going to show my British stoicism and hide all my emotions and feelings. No, but
welcome to my world, David. Welcome to my world.
It's interesting because when I hear the phrase storytelling, it sounds, and I mean this in a good way, but it sounds whimsical. It sounds it'll, not that it lacks credibility, because I'm not saying that, but it doesn't sound as robust as a good old-fashioned marketing and communication strategy. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not, I bet you come up against that a lot, do you? Where people are sort of, or maybe you don't, where people are sort of.
No, I do.
Yeah. I can imagine that being the case.
Yeah, it's a weird word. It really is. And it's got, people connect a lot of biases to it. In the UK, a story is a lie.
Yeah.
You usually told over a pint of Guinness, right? In the United States, a story is something that you read to your children at night to make them fall asleep faster. Mm-hmm. Right. So there are all these connections that we put on it. So it is kind of a strange word to use, but the reason I use it and the reason we might be stuck with it is because it is this capability that we all have. It's put aside those associations that you have with it. It's your brain's operating system for making sense of the world. Mm-hmm. You think in terms of stories. When you go to sleep tonight, your brain is going to keep telling you stories even while you sleep because it can't stop. This is what your brain does. So it's what we're talking about is not lying over a pint of beer, but taking this most human capability that you already have. We already do this when we sit down at the dinner table. Someone's going to tell a story of what happened that day. You don't even have to think about it. So it's this most human capability, and we're just bringing it into the work. Mm-hmm. And being more mindful and strategic about connecting it to the things that we care about.
Now, that sounds so simple, right? And I think of organizations, even those that Andrew and I work with, that are struggling to define and maybe in modern terms, redefine a mission. How do you use the stories of your members to help ensure that your mission is relevant? What's the process? What does that look like? You mentioned the word, inviting stories from your members. Is that something that should be done in an ongoing manner, or is this about a campaign? Is this a marketing effort that involves stories?
There's so many applications. It can be both of those. I assume you'll put like books and resources in the show notes, right? Because I've got some resources that can help your teams do all of the above. But when I work with groups, I like to start with the strategic selection piece of this. Which story should we be telling? Later we can go to how do you tell a good story? And I've got some thoughts about that. But I start with this selection because there's some stories that don't belong in your work. There's some that you're not going to tell, but there are some others that are really important. And I thought maybe today for this audience, I've got one really simple framework that might be helpful for your leaders, because we're in this weird COVID thing, right? Where there's uncertainty and we're trying to hold it all together and we're trying to move forward. And so there's one framework, a change and transformation framework I like to use for organizational systems that are in transition. So maybe that would be helpful today.
It is the 50th episode. I mean, I think we can give back to the audience. I don't want them to get used to this.
No,
I don't want to spoil them.
No, it's just
I don't want to spoil
the one-off freebie. We don't like giving our listeners any help at all.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. All 17 keep coming back. No, I think this is exciting. David, please continue. A framework for the audience for the 50th episode is special. I'm excited.
So if you are a leader in an association and things are feeling uncertain right now, I think there are three stories that you should be looking for and finding and then telling. And this comes from a body of organizational theory called appreciative inquiry, if you've ever heard of that, a guy named Dr. David Cooper-Ryder here in the US. And he says every organizational system has these three needs, including your association. And when I say system, that can be a team, it can be an association, it's your family also. Your family has these needs. And the needs are for continuity, novelty, and transition. And I'm saying you should tell stories about these things. Continuity is the thing that will never change. We're in this crazy world. We don't know what's coming next. People are tired and fatigued from all the change. And they're saying, "What? Give me something I can lean on." And so this is values, this is identity, this is founding principles. And that, as a leader, you don't want to mess with this too much, right? People don't like it when you mess with who we are. So this is a place where you want to minimize disruption. And then there's novelty. This is the new. And here you're managing how we dream and how we envision the future. And again, I'm saying you should tell stories about these things. And this is a place to stir things up and bring in change. And then there's transition. And I think these are really important stories that leaders forget to tell all the time. These are the stories of learning and adopting new behaviors and new beliefs and mental models and what it looks like as we're making these baby steps forward together. And so if you like, I can give you a couple of examples of what these stories sound like, just to kind of give you a vision.
Yeah, please. So many applications. Yeah, please.
Okay. And even within those categories, those three categories, there's lots of options. So continuity, the thing that will never change. Right. And there's thousands of stories. One is the origin story, the thing that was true at the beginning. These are great stories to tell. One organization that's really good at this is Patagonia, right? The outdoor clothing and outfitters company that they have huge engagement, including employee engagement. People love working there. And they do this. They tell stories, and they're having a hard time right now, like everybody else in retail. Right, of holding it together. And so here's a story that they are still telling internally at Patagonia. And so imagine we're on the team at Patagonia, and I'm your manager, and we're all in the break room. And I might say, here at Patagonia, we started back in the 1970s when our CEO, Yvon Chouinard, Yvon, we all love him, right, was a rock climber. And he was one of the best in the world when he was a young guy. And he wanted a better way to climb the rocks. And so he went out and he bought himself a forge and an anvil. And he started making these steel pegs that you could hammer into the rocks. And there's a little hole in it. You could, run a rope through it. Now your life is hanging from these steel pegs, these pitons, he called them, that you would hammer into the rocks. And then his friends started going, "Oh, could you make me some of those?" He started selling them for like $1.50 a piece. And pretty soon he was worth millions of dollars. And his company was growing. And this caused a problem because soon these popular pitons, these steel pegs, were in cliff faces all around the world, and they were causing cracks in the rocks, and they were disfiguring the beloved cliff faces that Yvon had pledged to protect. And he brought his team together and he said, "We have become villains. We have become the environmental bad guys." And so we stopped producing pitons. It was a radical decision. We stopped producing the product that made us rich. But Yvon was an innovator, and he did what innovators always do, and he created something new. And it's these they're called steel chocks. It's these little metal pieces that slide together, and you can stick them in the cracks of the rocks, and then your body weight holds them in place. And then as you scale the cliffs, you just easily lift them out of the cracks, and it doesn't do any damage. And the new chocks were a hit. And soon their fortunes soared once again. And now they're stronger than ever. And listen to this part of the story. This is important to put this at the end. Here at Patagonia, we've gone through tough times before, and we know how to innovate when things get hard. And we're going to do that again in this age that we're in. And one thing you can count on is that as we're making changes, our love for the environment and for planet Earth is one thing that will never change.
There you go.
That's it.
That's the pillar. That's what you can trust them for. That's what I mean, did you get chills, Andrew? I got chills.
So you kind of felt something a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, and I work to try to translate that to an association. And I think of trade associations where I've spent most of my time, and they're brought together around a story, around a need, around a pain or a challenge. And if each of them could find that origin story, how powerful could it be? And to your Patagonia example, what strength, what resolve can they then elevate and show to be consistent, to show to be their forever core value?
So the prompt would be, tell me about something that was true at the beginning, and what does it say about you that's still true? And you're right. It might be the moment that the association came together, or it doesn't have to be the beginning of the association. If you're a new leader, if you're not the first president, it can be you have an origin story. Let me tell you what brought me to this role in this organization. There's a reason I was excited about leading this. And let me tell you what that was. And then notice all those elements I put in, right? There was a character in there, and there was a challenge, and then there was something that was different at the end. So all of those story elements that, you said you got some goosebumps, all of those things that I put in there are what create that emotional connection. So tell it as a story, right? Trust those elements.
Yeah. Well, and as a strategic planner, I'm even more excited about the novelty component of your framework, and telling, telling the story of how you envision the future. That's what I would be excited for an organization to harness and provide narrative to. So it doesn't sound like you're just giving your talking points, or you're giving your next State of the Union address. I think it could be more powerful as a story. What does that novelty component of the framework look like?
So these are interesting stories because, these are vision stories, future stories, and stories are historical. Stories are, when we tell stories, it's something that's happened, but the vision is the future. The future hasn't happened yet. How do you tell a story about something that hasn't happened yet? And there's a few ways to do this. One story type in the novelty story, I call it the imagine if we had that here story. Again, a lot of my work is creating these story taxonomies of story types. So here's one. Imagine if we had that here. And so the thing that we need here in our association, we don't have it yet. But let me tell you about a group that does. And here's what's going on in that group, and then tell it as a story. So here's one example of that. So this one comes from a guy named Steve Denning, who's a British guy, was an executive at World Bank. And he was early in this new idea in organizations called knowledge management. And it was a new idea at the time. And he went around World Bank, all the offices around the world, trying to get people excited about this idea. And he had his presentation, he had his slide deck, and he just couldn't get any people excited about it. And he was frustrated. And he said one day he changed his approach, and he stepped up in front of an audience at World Bank. And for the first time, instead of showing his slides, he told a story. And this is the story he told. Let me see if I can remember. He actually has it written down in his book called The Springboard: How Storytelling Ignites Action in Knowledge Era Organizations. So it goes kind of like this. There's a little healthcare clinic out in a remote village in the country of Zambia. And Zambia is one of the poorest countries in the world, but this healthcare clinic doesn't have much, but what they do have is a phone line and a modem. This was in the early days of the internet. And when a new strain of malaria came through the village, they were able to dial up the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA, and download new protocols for dealing with this new strain of malaria. Remember, this is in Zambia, poorest country in the world. And what's significant about this story, Denning said, is that we're not in it. Despite our know-how at World Bank on all kinds of poverty-related issues, we have no way of helping people access that information. Imagine if we did. Think what an organization we could become. And that was it.
I see what you did there. That was good. I see what you did there.
Right. So that only takes a minute or two to tell. And Denning said for the first time after his presentation, people rushed the stage.
Yeah.
They're like, why don't we have this capability? What's the holdup?
Yeah.
They're like blaming him for holding it up. And he was so stunned that he says the Zambia story was the moment that caused transformation all across the World Bank system. Mm-hmm. This is almost too good to be true, right? This little 2-minute story was a spark that totally changed the system. Today, World Bank is a leader in knowledge management, a global leader. Mm-hmm. And so just a simple story can invite people in. So that's, imagine if we had that here.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, and I think it's also imagine your future impact, because I can see that type of story translating to a professional society. You're talking about a student nurse working his or her way through their schooling, and is your organization having an impact on that person during their career path? And if not? Why aren't we in that story? And what if we were? How could we be impactful and deliver transformational knowledge, resource, whatever it is. But I can definitely see how that would translate. That's great.
No, you're onto something really good here, because you notice on both stories, I made this little statement at the end. Here at Patagonia, one thing that's never going to change. And then in World Bank, imagine if we had, right? So one thing that differentiates leadership storytelling from entertainment storytelling is there's an invitation at the end. There's a reason I told you this story. There's something I want you to think about. And then you have to use your language and thread that together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And don't trust that the audience is going to come to that conclusion. They're not. They're thinking about something else. They're thinking, wow, mountain climbing. I wonder if that's hard. and so no, you need to say there's a value in here. And now you've taken this emotional breathing thing that's a story and this abstract idea that's a value for environmentalism, and you've connected them. Yeah. And now people go, oh, so that's what our value for environmentalism looks like. So the leader at the end, you have to make this statement, an invitation. Think about this. What is this? What if we had more of this? And now we're talking. Now we're having a brilliant dialogue together.
Andrew, your arms are crossed. You have your pessimistic, grumpy old man.
No, it's not my pessimistic. No, not at all. I'm wishing I'd met you 15 years ago. It would have made life so much easier, because what you're saying makes perfect sense. And actually, I'm thinking a lot as you're talking, and I hope this is the case for, I'm sure it will be for listeners as well. I'm thinking about ways in which to apply these principles, in the work that I'm doing, and it's fascinating. And it's really interesting that the novelty piece, I don't know if Lisa and I have done quite a bit of chat around futures literacy, and what you're saying, it taps directly into it as a means for enabling an individual's or an organization's futures literacy. I think it's fascinating. I love to link it all together. And yeah, like I say, where were you 15 years ago, fella? Come on, man. My career could have been so much better.
He was a baby. I mean, David's so young. But all of the
hair, right?
all of the organizations, especially in the environment of the last few years, are working to assess and evolve their organizational culture. But I wonder, what is it all worth if you're not telling that story? And it makes me think to your transition piece, the transition piece of the framework, which sounds like telling your progress along the way, not only so you're engaging those who you want on board, getting credit for the change and the shifts that you're making, but learning how to tell your story, not just when you need something, not just when you're trying to sell something or get someone to jump on board, but along the way to demonstrate your progress. Is that what the transition piece of the framework is for?
That is the transition piece, and there's lots of ways to tell these stories. One that I like is the failure story.
Andrew has lots of those. There's lots of material here.
Lisa does not have any of those stories, but Andrew does.
Transformation is top of the list at the moment.
Uh-oh, I'm now accepting applications for a new co-host. Episode 51.
No, maybe I'm accepting applications for. Imagine, dear listener, imagine what it would be like if you were my co-host. Anyway,
so the failure story. These are really important for like innovation cultures. And people tell these wrong. People, if they tell them at all, some people don't want to tell them. Because they pay me all the big bucks to get the answer right. And I don't want to tell you about the time I screwed up, right? I don't want to look dumb. And the way to tell these stories, it's not, wow, I did something dumb. I don't know what I was thinking. Never do that again. It's not that. It's we tried something. We went in with an expectation. We got results that were not the results we expected. And here's our thinking about why we got the results we did. And now we are changing our behaviors or our thinking or our mental models or our assumptions so that we can get better results next time. Right. And so this is, I mean, there shouldn't be risk in telling these stories. If you're a leader, you actually owe it to your system to tell these stories.
Right. Well, we talk about the new role of leaders, not only to be empathetic, but to be authentic. And this tool of storytelling, this language that you discuss and that you've really created as a system for people to adopt, I think it's a mechanism for this new era, this new generation of leader to figure out how to find that balance, how to be real, how to use their story and harness the organization's story to be all that leaders are expected to be these days.
Yeah, the conversation is changing. The organizational conversation is changing. And I'm hearing this all over the world, across Asia and Europe and the United States. And that is that markets are expecting leaders to show up differently. And employers are finding out from the new generation of talent that they're being called to show up differently. And there's a lot of talk right now about bringing more humanity into the organization, humanizing leadership. This is a term I keep hearing, right?
Yeah.
And this is the language of a more humanized leadership.
Yeah. I think that is when you were saying that, I was thinking it is about humanity and bringing your humanity to the workplace, to your organization, to your. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I do this a lot, and it doesn't always mean anything in particular. So I apologize, David. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating how I'm sitting here and I'm understanding, the taxonomy of the story arcs that you described. But how easy is it for me to? I mean, do I need to have a different skill set to be able? I mean, do I need to be a bit of a wordsmith, as it were, to be able to devise these stories, or is it enough just to have the framework in front of me? I mean, how easy is it? Because I'm sitting here thinking, I've got loads of stories, but I'm still not sure how to tell them.
Yeah. So almost everybody comes into this work feeling that way. Almost everyone says, "Oh, I'm not a storyteller," and everybody knows a leader who's really good at this. And right, you're probably thinking of people who do this well, and you go, "Oh, I can't do that." And I always tell people, I don't do public speaking skills. I don't teach people how to be a better public speaker, because a lot of people hear the word storytelling and they think it means performance. And a lot of people even say, I don't want to sound like I'm performing. Yeah, I don't want to sound that way either. When you do this right, it just sounds like you talking about things that happened.
Yeah.
And I've seen people who were poor public speakers, maybe they stuttered, or they struggled with English as a second language, and visibly nervous. But if they tell the right story at the right time in their own voice, so it sounds like just them talking, it can be transformational.
Yeah.
So this is the work that I do, is I bring the team together and sit in a circle and say, let's tell stories about something that happened and see what we can do with that.
Yeah. And David, I mean, you offer workshops, you have many books, you have these templates, and that I know help people through this process. Where can people find out more about you, more about what you do, and what you're up to next?
So I have a lot of stuff you can have for free. So come to my website.
Oh, that's like you're swearing at Elisa. She doesn't like anything going out the door for free. What is wrong with you?
So much free stuff. Storytellingleader.com. Come to storytellingleader.com and you can download these card sets that have dozens of ideas of stories you could be telling. I have another resource called the Story Canvas, which after you've identified the story, and if you want to tell it well, it's this visual framework for building your story. You just fill in the boxes with sticky notes and then try telling your story and see if it sounds different, and it will. And then I've got all kinds of books and resources that can help you find your stories, ask your team for their stories, build your stories to tell them better. It's all at storytellingleader.com.
Well, I have a confession for Andrew. Andrew, I have actually taken David's workshop and been a participant. I mean, it moved everyone. Awesome. Everyone was in a very different place by the end of the workshop. I was the only person from the nonprofit sector,
right,
in that 2-day program, and it was, it was special for me, thinking in a mission-driven way, thinking about an association, thinking about a trade association or a professional society, and I think it's just as powerful and potent in that environment. I mean, most of everyone else's examples were corporate, were for profit, were, I worked my way up and we launched this product and blah, blah, blah. And I just think there's such power in the story, in these narratives of continuity and novelty and transition for nonprofit organizations, especially now as they're working to become something other than, here's our menu of benefits, here's what your dues cost, here's this and this. I mean, we have to be aspirational in an inspirational way. And I've been in love with the Storytelling Leader and a huge fan of David for a long time. So thanks for letting me sneak him onto our podcast as our 50th episode guest.
Not at all. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much, David. Thank you.
This has been a pleasure. And so good to see you again, Elisa. I miss you. And
oh my God.
Now Andrew is a new friend. So.
The loving that is going on this podcast is totally inappropriate for British audiences, right? We don't need this. We don't need all this.
This is not stoic enough.
No.
Stoic enough.
Andrew, next time I'm in London, I'll buy you a pint of Guinness.
Fair enough. I love you very much. There you go.
All right, everyone, visit storytellingleader.com. Check out your favorite podcast source for association transformation. Make us one of your favorites. And until next time, stay well and put your members and your mission first.